this whole time I was recording and my microphone wasn't even on. I'm so mad. We're seeing the official announcement of their proposal, and it was very rehearsed. We find out that Meghan's ring, so it was like a big rock in the middle, and then it had like 2 diamonds on the side. Apparently, the 2 diamonds on the side were from his mother's jewelry collection. I thought that was very sweet that he incorporated like a bit of his mom into the ring. Harry says that Princess Diana would have loved Meghan and they would have been thick as thieves. And I don't know about you, but I had to Google that because I was like, what does that mean? And it basically just means like, you know, thick as thieves. Like thieves are going to be like this with each other, right? So it's just kind of like besties kind of. We find out more about slavery in the UK. A lot of like disturbing things. Apparently Britain enslaved more Africans than the US ever did, which is being from America, I'm like, that's already super concerning. Apparently like kings and queens for years were financing slavery. Like it wasn't until it was abolished that they obviously, stopped financing it. But Queen Elizabeth I, which I was like, Queen Elizabeth I, who's that? You know, I don't know who that is. But apparently she financed the first ever like slave voyage. And on top of that, not only were slave owners compensated when slavery was abolished, but they were compensated like heavily, millions, in the double digits, millions. And I guess many people there aren't even that in tune with their history because a lot of people didn't learn about that in school. Like what they learned about slavery was that it was abolished. And then we get into the topic of royal experts, which is apparently the same thing as a royal correspondent. So apparently anyone can become a royal expert, royal correspondent. And I guess that title is given to like a selected group of journalists, which means that papers can now quote, you know, whatever they're saying, they could say it's through a royal expert or royal correspondent, and that will give them like obviously that extra credibility and basically passes it on as facts. And I guess technically it's not even just, it's a title, it's a job because you do get paid for it. How much? I don't know how much you get paid, but there's money. And so I guess like because UK taxpayers pay for the royal family, it's kind of like this unwritten contract, like taxpayers pay, so you have to like perform is how they put it. Like we're allowed to know private things about your life and we're allowed to exploit you because we're paying for you, so you need to give us what we want basically. And Harry just like talks about how like shitty it is to have to be exploited by the media and have to perform for these tabloids, you know, these people who write terrible things about you, about your family. And so Meghan says something like they wanted, like the media wanted my mom's side of the family to be like the crazy one basically. But she's like, here's my mom, so classy, not saying anything, and here's my dad's side of the family singing like fucking birds. She didn't say that, but that's how I'm putting it. And then she talks about her sister Samantha, which I've seen tons of like headlines about Samantha alone. And basically her making all of these crazy false claims about like everything she had to say about Meghan has always been negative, about how they were so close up until like she started dating Harry, I think, and just like all of this information. And Meghan's kind of like, I don't even know your birthday. I don't even know your middle name. Like we were never close. Apparently there's like a 17-year age gap between them. So Doria, her mother talks about how like when she got with Tom, like his kids were grown, like they weren't in the house anymore. And Meghan was just basically like, we never even been close enough to have a fallout. So like that doesn't really make any sense. So we find out that even though Meg was not close to her half-sister Samantha, she was close to her daughter Ashley. They don't say why Samantha never took care of Ashley, like, because Ashley and her brother went to live with her paternal grandparents, and when she was 2 years old. And then I think they later on adopted them. You don't even have custody of your kids. Like, something's up. I guess the last time that Ashley had seen Samantha was when she was 6. And then they didn't reunite until like 2007. And so I guess one day Megan's dad was just kind of like, again, a weird thing to say, like, Samantha found her daughter. Meg was like, oh, like, if you have her email address, I'd like to email her. And then I guess they began to email each other. They began to text and all that. And so they got really close. They went on trips together. And Ashley just says basically how Megan was like a sister, like a best friend, a sister. Like, she had like a maternal element there. Then we see like another like scandal make headlines. And it was someone from Harry's family, a princess of somewhere, Kent or something. She attended an event or a party with Meghan there, and she was wearing a blackamoor brooch, like on her dress or whatever she was wearing. Then it gets into the conversation of like, if you were to walk into any palace, you would find a lot of racist imagery, murals of enslaved people, and then like we see images of it, like they show images of it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is in the palace. Like, apparently any like building with a lot of tradition, you will see those kinds of things inside. We see like headlines from years ago when he wore what they're saying was a Nazi uniform to a party. He was, I think, 20 at the time. And then he talks about how like ashamed he was after it, and like basically things he did in order to make that right. I knew Harry was in the army, but I didn't know he was in the army for 10 years. So if you're watching this video, you're gonna realize that things look a little different, and that's because my camera died. And so I'm recording this the next day because it was already too late to charge the battery and then continue filming. So I'm just gonna kind of pick up where I left off. They show this Royal Foundation forum that Meghan, Harry, William, and Kate were a part of. So it was just the 4 of them, and I think it was kind of their first time doing something just the 4 of them together. And I don't remember the question they asked Meghan, but she brings up like the Me Too movement and Time's Up. I guess that was the first time that a royal has spoke on something like so controversial. Like, I guess their motto is kind of like, we don't speak on those things for a reason. And she's just kind of like, well, I didn't know that, you know, talking about that was gonna be like such a big issue. Like, I thought it was, she says to me it was just topical. And so along with all the other press she was getting, you know, I think people were kind of starting to see like, okay, she is kind of turning things around. Like, you know, she's mixed race, she's been divorced, she's American, she's an actress. All these things were kind of building up, and we start seeing that get worse for her in the media. In this episode, they reference the Princess Diaries, and I think everyone alive who was born in the 90s, even in the 2000s, hopefully, has watched the Princess Diaries. I remember actually we used to have like an old family van, like clearly remember when I was little, and this van had like you had the ability to play a movie. So we had it on VHS, and we would put it in on like long drives and watch it in the car. But obviously I've watched that movie 1,000 times. So she references the movie because she's kind of like, in the movie when Mia finds out she's a princess, she, you know, she's lived a normal life up until that point. She has her grandma, the queen, telling her like, you know, you're a princess. I can teach you to walk, talk, sit, act like a princess. And Meg says, you know, if you think that kind of just becoming part of this family would mean that you have someone there who's like, this is what you need to, you know, like someone with a presentation, like, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to learn. This is how you're going to dress. She's like, that doesn't exist, which I thought was one of the craziest things she could have said, because I 1,000% would think, like, I don't understand, why wouldn't the royal family have someone? Obviously, she knows, she's American for one. She knows nothing about that. She's coming into this family, and you guys have no one to kind of guide her through the process so that she doesn't make a fool of herself, so that she doesn't make all of these mistakes and in turn gets attacked by the media. She even says that, like, she didn't even know the national anthem. She had to Google it. So it's like, why couldn't someone provide like a script? Like, here's the national anthem, memorize it, do what you have to do. So then you start seeing like all these headlines in the media of like, she broke yet another protocol, like all these protocols. And as Harry said, they were made up protocols. Like, she broke the hair protocol, she broke this protocol. And I guess just to pick on her, they just kind of started saying like, she broke all of these protocols, just kept attacking her in the media. Every time I would see a picture of Meghan, she'd be kind of in like neutral colors. And she addresses that. She says that there was a lot of thought in that because she wanted to do everything she could to not stand out. Obviously, if she's wearing a bright color, she's going to stand out. So she was like, what is, and I guess another rule is you can't wear the same color to an event as like another royal. You can't wear the same color as the queen, and you can't wear a same color as a more senior member of the royal family. So she kind of just played it safe. She was like, okay, like, what's a color that they probably won't wear? So she stuck to like beige, tan, like neutral colors. And all of this is kind of just like leading up to the wedding. Of course, more and more stories, like I think like the week of the wedding, start coming out, and they were all like just made up, very like nasty stories coming out about her. That is when she kind of had to break the news to Ashley, her niece, that she wouldn't be invited to the wedding because I guess their communications team, I guess every royal member has like a communications team, and their communications team was like, basically like, she can't come because how do you explain that she's invited but her mother, aka Meghan's half sister Samantha, isn't invited? Like, I guess that was just going to be another story that they didn't want to come out. It was just going to be another headline. But it's kind of like, at this point, there's so many headlines, who cares? Like, they're making up so many things about her, like, who really cares? But I guess they had to follow the rules basically, and so she had to break the news to Ashley over the phone. She said her and Harry had to call Ashley and basically like tell her that she couldn't come, and try to tell her exactly, like explain to her why they had to make that decision. We also see Harry and Meghan attend a memorial for, it was like the 25th anniversary of the death of a black, I think he was a teen, might have not been a teen, but I think so. His name was Stephen Lawrence. I guess it was a racial attack. There was like 5 white male suspects, and I think only 2 of the killers were brought to justice. So them visiting the memorial was became, obviously a big thing in the media and everywhere around, because it was they were making a statement. By attending the memorial, they were making a statement. And I think a lot of people saw that like as a sign of hope. And then we get into the week before the wedding, this whole drama with her dad. They find out like the day before. It's interesting how they find out things like when bad stories are going to drop. They find this out like the day before. So I think they have time to plan how they will react to what's going to come out. But basically they get a notice that Meghan's dad has been like staging pics and taking money from the press. And so they show the staged pics, and it's like him on like what are they called? The bikes that you exercise on, and he has like, I think like a towel around his neck. He's clearly obviously trying to lose weight, I think, for the wedding. Like, that's what they're trying to paint it off as. And we see him, there's another picture of him like at like getting fitted, I think, for a suit. The measuring tape was like around his waist. And then there's another one of him sitting like at a coffee shop or a restaurant, I'm not sure, but he's sitting down and he's reading a book about the UK. Like, when you look at these photos, like, you can tell that they're staged. There was also another one of him like at a computer, and he's staring at a picture of Meghan and Harry, but the computer is like, right, obviously if you're staring at a computer, the computer's in front of you and you're just kind of looking at it, but he's kind of sitting at an angle and the computer is angled that way so that obviously it's angled so that the person can get a good picture of the screen and of him. So all of these pictures were obviously look super staged. And so when Harry and Meghan find out this info, Meghan's like, what? Like, you know, she's kind of like, that can't be true. And so she gives him a call, and of course he denies it. And she's like, okay, you know, like, this story is gonna drop. Like, we can get someone to send you now. We can send someone over to go get you because your house is gonna be swarmed by the time the story comes out. And he's just kind of like, no, you know, like, I have things to do, and like just brushes it off. They hung up, and she turns to Harry and she was like, I don't believe him. Her mom makes a statement like, I was shocked to see that Tom would become a part of the circus. And I was like, girl, you go. You get on your ex-husband, because what the fuck is that? Like, how could you sit there and exploit your daughter? You're just stressing her out more. And her mental health obviously was already not in a good space. And to be her dad and add to that stress, it's disgusting, honestly. And so, of course, Meghan and Harry find out that he won't be coming to the wedding. And he's just kind of blowing them off through text. But there was this, I guess the whole time they were texting, Meghan was trying to reassure him, like, we are not mad. Like, we just want to know you're safe, because these reports start coming out right before the wedding that he's in the hospital. And she's like, please answer your phone. We see all these messages that she's sending him, like bombarding him with texts, like, answer your phone. We're not mad. We just want to make sure you're safe. All of these things. And he, apparently the messages that she was getting in response, they didn't really make sense. And she was kind of like, this can't be my dad texting. Like, I know the way he texts, and this is not how he texts. He even calls her Meghan at one point, and she's like, he like has never in his life called me Meghan. So I was like, so they came to the conclusion that his phone had been compromised. But I'm like, how do you, but I don't really understand like what exactly that means. Like, if that wasn't her dad texting her, then who was it? Was it Samantha? Was it like who? You know, I was like a little confused. I'm like, who would have access to his phone to be texting, acting like they're him? And that is pretty much how the episode ends. Obviously, the next few episodes, the next one at least, is going to focus on the wedding. So I guess we'll see how things go. But yeah, that wraps up episode 3. But yeah, I will be back to recap episode 4. I don't know how many episodes will be coming up next. Maybe 3. I'm assuming it's going to be 3. First was 3, but I guess we'll see. Bye.